Hello again there, Reef friends. Welcome back to Craft Aquatic. I'm Matt G. In this video, we are going to discuss the America Competes Act, specifically the Lacey Act amendment to H.R. 4521, which was recently voted through the House of Representatives and is now heading to Senate for consideration. I'll talk about what this amendment is, how it will negatively affect the reef aquarium hobby, and direct steps that you can take to hopefully change the trajectory or even inclusion of this broad and unfocused amendment in the America Competes Act. So let's get right to it. So let's start by explaining what this amendment is exactly, and then get into how it will affect the reef aquarium hobby or any pet keeper that keeps quote-unquote exotic species. I first want to mention that the majority of this information came through the reptile keepers community, who have done an excellent job at staying on top of this. I've linked to several resources below, one of which is usarc.org. I highly recommend you go there and read up if you want to reach beyond the scope of this video. We will try to get through this topic quickly to arm you with some knowledge and information if you wish to voice your own objection to this, which I hope you do. So buried in the 2,912 pages of the America Competes Act of 2022 is this H.R. 4521 Lacey Act amendment that affects all non-domesticated pets and animals. This is all animals except for cats, dogs, and farm animals. Unfortunately, the coral and frags in your basement or large-scale coral farm will not be considered farm animals if cnidarians are eventually included in this legislation. The America Competes Act itself is intended to create a competitive advantage for American business, manufacturing, and technology. It is not uncommon that amendments like H.R. 4521 are slipped into larger acts like this, hoping to pass unnoticed. Fortunately, many hobbyists of all stripes have noticed this inclusion and are discussing it on various forums, videos, and podcasts, as we should. We can talk until we are blue in the face, but if we don't raise each of our individual voices, this hobby is in very real danger. The nuts and bolts are that this amendment would create a whitelist that will directly affect reef hobbyists and reef-related business. USARC fought this in the past and won, but this amendment will reinstate a ban on interstate transportation of species. The wording specifies species that might survive the climate of any given state, but the interpretation is not very precise and leaves far too broad a reach, and a whitelist that would require any approved species to be added to it, rather than a blacklist that excludes a few specific species. The America Competes Act passed the House on February 4th and will head to Senate next. In order for this act to become a reality, it will need to be approved by both legislative bodies, followed by Congress, before it is signed by the President. Now, this sounds like a lot to wade through before this bill is actually implemented, especially given the disjointed nature of U.S. politics, but it does not mean it won't pass. The point here is not to stop the America Competes Act itself, but to promote the exclusion of the Lacey Act amendments, or at least to encourage specific language in the bill that doesn't leave politicians not familiar with our practices with such a broad brush to paint the reef aquarium hobby out of existence. It is our responsibility to be the educators, contacting our local senators directly, and we will discuss exactly how to do that. When it comes down to it, the reality of this bill passing as it stands will be devastating to tens of thousands of businesses, which is absolutely contrary to the larger intent of this act. Clearly, every reef aquarium hobbyist will be directly affected by this bill. So imagine with me just one scenario where you have a large aquarium with some fish or invertebrates that are not getting along. Perhaps a fish or sea urchin has overgrown your aquarium. You need to act fast and relocate something out of your aquarium and into another system. You decide that you can share it with a friend who lives just 10 minutes away, right over the state line. Well, you'll have to think again if this amendment to the Lacey Act passes, because you could be subject to federal prosecution and a fine up to $20,000 simply for doing the right and responsible thing. At the time of this video, cnidarians are not currently mentioned in this amendment, but given the broad language used and open scope of the changes being proposed, we really don't want to bet on the future exclusion of all aquacultured and imported coral in this potential future legislation. The new wording could use an especially heavy-handed, extremely broad approach to defining a species as injurious, potentially banning a large category of maricultured and collected coral invertebrates and fish. If you don't care about your own future in the hobby, maybe consider how the reef industry supports communities around the world and creates economic stability for those regions. The coral trade promotes a local sense of value around these resources, protecting natural reefs around the planet. At least at this point, you would not be prohibited from keeping the fish and coral you already own, but your options will become more and more limited over time. Even if this particular bill does not pass, this will not be the last attempt. We need to get used to exercising our rights to respectfully and consistently voice our opinions if we want to share this hobby with future generations. Definitely find and sign petitions, but we are far past that point. If you value the future of this hobby, it is critical to write or contact both of your state senators today. So I really want to try to make this easier because I personally didn't know where to go either. So here's how you can go about contacting your state senators, which we need to do now since this has moved on from the House to the Senate. If this amendment does progress further by the time you see this video, I'd encourage you to consult the US ARC website for further instructions on how to speak out. First off, do not be intimidated or unreasonable when you contact your representative. Come at this from the approach that your senators are paid to listen to your concerns, and it is generally in their best interest to do so. He or she is someone who wants to understand the implications of H.R. 4521 passing and how it might affect your community. It is likely that they are not fully aware of how many people such an amendment will affect and how. With that said, it is our responsibility to educate them in a respectful way and to be a shining example of how intelligent and thoughtful a reef aquarist can be. So do be civil and professional at all times. First off, you will need to contact your two state senators. You can visit www.senate.gov to conduct a search using Find Your Senators. There, you will be able to find the contact information, including email address, mailing address, and phone numbers. I'll put a direct link below in the description. US ARC recommends mailing letters over using email for maximum effectiveness. Next, I encourage you to head over to usarc.org/2022 Lacey / navigate down to the sample phone call message or sample letter, and you can use as much or as little of it as a template as you see fit. There are even talking points there that are for the most part not reptile specific, so you can personalize them as need be. They are great to read through even if you are simply trying to get a more in-depth overview of the specifics of this amendment. As an example of two sections quoted direct from the US ARC sample letter, here we go. The Senate U.S. Innovation and Competition Act of S1260 and America Competes Act H.R. 4521 will meet to be reconciled. These Lacey Act amendments are not pertinent to the intent of these bills and must be removed. And I found this especially appropriate. If these amendments pass, the Lacey Act will leave pet owners everywhere unable to move across state lines with their family pets. This restriction would include prohibitions of interstate travel for veterinary care, for educational programs, and for relocation of family. So that is it. I hope this video is helpful. I realize it is not the typical non-political subject matter this channel puts out. With that said, this is a most critical topic when it comes to the future of this hobby. It is your right as a U.S. citizen to make your voice known if you wish to continue the privilege to easily maintain, share, and sell marine species. If you have a channel or a voice on forums or in social media, I encourage you to share this video, or even better, make your own. I hope you enjoyed the coral B-roll and found the information useful. Please continue the conversation below if you have helpful thoughts or suggestions. So now let's get out there and educate our senators. Best of luck, thank you for watching Craft Aquatic, and I will see you in the next video.